Six-pack Lapadat. We got the 120 British Phenom, Nonso Chinye, and you were telling me, well, I was about to ask you, I mean, how was prep going? I remember you, dog, from 2022. You knew I was going to bring this up, and you were 17 years old. And
Yeah.
Gavin Aiden, we're doing the commentary in, this is, where was it? South Africa or no?
Turkey.
Yeah, it was Istanbul. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're in Istanbul, Turkey. And me and Gavin Aiden were doing a commentary, and we were down by the venue. And 17-year-old Nonzo was down there, and you were, I think you were like 100 kilos, lifting in the 105s, just getting your feet wet with powerlifting. You had no idea who me and Gavin were, and you were like looking us up right in front of us, be like, it was such a moment. And now when I talk to Gavin, it's like, do you know what that kid became? And this is just 2 years later. Like, God knows what you end up doing as well. It's crazy how life works, man. Like, how much has changed in 2 years?
It's actually crazy. I actually remember it so well because I literally had no idea who either way you were. And then I was just there, and I remember Gavin was like, "Oh, do you know who I am?" I was like, "Nah." He's like, "Search me up." I was like, "This is crazy."
I know. Yeah, I was like, dude, you got to know who Gavin Aiden is. But yeah, it's exciting when you start like discovering people and looking them up and whatnot. But how much has changed for you? Because you were, I mean, you're only 17, you're only 19 now, but in terms of the hype around you, how are you dealing with this? Because every now and then we see juniors or sub juniors with this kind of hype. Hamza, who's he was like crazy hype on the way up. He like retired at 18.
Yeah.
18. And he's like, I think I'm retiring. Dog, you just started. How are you dealing with all of this exposure?
Um, to be honest, I love it. I like the idea that like people are looking at me and kind of expecting big things from me. I don't know. I kind of I thrive in that pressure. So it's definitely like suited towards me. Um, I'm just happy to be honest because this is kind of like since I started, obviously you want to be the best you can. So I'm happy that like I've been given a platform and now people expect this of me. Yeah, it's crazy how in 2 years I've learned out that much.
I mean, the obviously the 120s has got a lot of big names in it. When you first started, you're a 105. When you first started, who were you watching? Who were you looking at? Who were you following?
Um, in the UK, James Adcock was probably a big one for me. I saw him at Worlds, and then in the 105s, I remember I watched before, and it was Coco. I watched, and I think I did a top swap with him, and it was crazy seeing him like as a junior 105 and where I was and seeing the difference. Um, Besides that, I was very much not clued up on who anyone was. I literally went out there, competed, just met as many people as I can, and yeah,
It was Coco from France, Coco Clement.
yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
How did you find him?
Um, because we were competing like one after the other, and then he won. I remember seeing he just had some like insane numbers to me. And then after I went up to him, I was like, "Oh, I just won the 105 juniors. Like, you're so sick. Can I get a picture?" He's like, "Yeah." And then he was like, "Oh, do you want to do a top swap?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I haven't got the one right now." And then I met up with him later, and then we swapped tops.
Dude, I mean, obviously he's part of the French
Yeah.
equipe, but he's a super nice guy. The guy's a monster. You're a monster too, though.
Thanks, mate.
But he's a big boy. And his background story is absolutely fascinating. Do you know Coco's background story?
No, don't know.
Okay, he was on King of the Lifts. He's a friend, and he was telling me. I mean, what is he like 6'4"? I know you guys do centimeters. I'm in Canada. We kind of do centimeters and inches, but when we do height, we do inches. But he's like
Yeah, no, I
six
know.
foot.
It's
He's a
just
monster.
6 foot. Yeah.
Okay. And when he was younger, he became obsessed with controlling the food he ate, controlling his workouts, just became absolutely incensed to the point where, I mean, he would have anxiety that if he didn't get to the gym in time when he was like, because he was in class having panic attacks, working out, getting to the gym, and getting his workout in. He couldn't. He had so little food in him that to smile and talk would drain the little bit of energy he had. He had 0 calories in him, zero. He was a monster man, but he was so rail thin and so obsessed with mitigating how much he ate. His family's like, what the heck is going on? And they became moved like the obsession, not just from the food control, but over to the weights. And when he started lifting, it became the obsession with control became like, I got to get to the gym. I need to do, it was like 10 sets of 10, like 100 reps of squats. He was being in the gym for like 4 hours. It was crazy. Like an obsession occurred. This is how his mind worked. And whatever he got into, he became obsessed with. And literally to the point where he thought he was like he was going to die. And then eventually started, getting control of it, but keeping the obviously the drive and motivation, etc. But that's way past that. This is like a scary level of obsession early on. I've heard of this kind of thing before. Sometimes when something crazy happens in your life, you become hyper focused and obsessed with something that you can control because you have no control in other parts of your life. So this is like your way of controlling something. And you but you
Yeah.
don't you, you actually don't have control of the obsession. But so you stop eating, you stop whatever, but you have control of it. You're making that happen to you. And I've heard of this before, man, and it's happened. But Coco came on, and it's a wild background story, man.
Crazy. I
Now
never
you
knew
see
that.
him, dude, wildest. When he describes it, like as the clock is ticking down at school, anxiety's building, and he's like, I gotta get there, I gotta get there, I gotta get there, I gotta get to the gym. I got like we're not talking Gavin Aiden style motivated. We're talking obsessed, where it's like, and he's gonna go in there and he's gonna live for hours. And like he has to get every single rep in. Like he can't stop early. He can't, that's it. Like it's everything. It's wild, man.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Dog. Talk about a background story. It's a
For
good King of the List podcast. If you dig back into the archives, it's yeah, he's got a hell of a
real.
background story. But now you meet him. I mean, this is years ago, and that's long gone, man. My man, you see him now. My man will be smashing pizza and taking breaks in between his sets. It's all good now. It's not that now, but yeah, he's a phenomenal lifter himself. But so when did you start lifting? Period.
So in lockdown, I actually started with like running. I used to run, like I became low key like to the obsessive point with running. I'd run every day, 5 or 10K, and then came out of lockdown and I was like really, really skinny, and just went back to school when gyms opened up. So literally just started going gym with my friends. So that would have been in 2021. Just got into the gym, started lifting. We'd all PB every day, try to come in, just hit something crazy. And so yeah, it started then really.
Like you were huge for a runner, though. No, like what distance was this?
So 5K or 10K, I don't know what it is in miles, but
No, that's
it would
good.
be like,
I do Ks.
okay. Yeah, so it'd literally be like every day. I remember it got so bad. One time I came in because I didn't really know how to feel myself properly. I literally just passed out. Like it was like to a pretty like serious point just because I wanted to keep fit and then kind of switched over to the gym and I just fell in love with it instantly.
What do you think that you like so much about like the running part?
Um, to be honest, it was more so routine. It was just like something to do every day because being cooped up in the house all day was kind of just I don't know, it's driving me a bit crazy. So it was just something I could do. And obviously you could push yourself, trying to get like a faster time and all that. So I do feel like I'm a bit of a creature of habit. So I enjoy being able to like push myself and have something to look forward to each day.
Saw a clip about a podcast and two guys were debating, and the one guy said, "This day and age, we have way too many people on social media talking about like fitness and physical health, and not enough people talking about mental health. And you have all these guys with all these big muscles, but they're mentally weak and they're mentally whatever. And this is what this guy was saying, right? And this guy, you could probably picture what he looked like, huh? And this other dude who's super fit was like, I think you got it backwards. He said, if you're having mental issues, trying to think your way out of overthinking is impossible. But if you're overthinking and you have all these scenarios in your head and you just put a pause and go for a walk, you put a pause, you go for a jog. You put a pause, you put some weight on your back. You're not thinking about nothing with a few 100 pounds on your back. You're extremely centered. You are extremely present. You ain't thinking about nothing like that. And he's like, that's the beginning, is putting a pause in that thinking by doing something physical. Now you do that daily and you're breaking up that negative pattern of thoughts. You do that once you start breaking the pattern. Now you're moving in the right direction, and then you start setting goals and you start creating habits. And the other guy had no rebuttal. It's like it's true though. They're very closely linked. So to your point, when it comes to when everyone was locked down and you're like, man, I need something. And why running? I mean, it was accessible. I leave my house and I start going. It's as simple as that.
It's literally it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But you ran. Did you have any ambitions to like compete or anything, or was it just like I need to do something?
It was literally just I need to do something. It was I guess obviously I did it with two of my friends, so there was that competitive edge of who could do it faster and all that. There was always a bit of competition, but I don't think I ever actually gave it thought to do it seriously, like all the way. Just literally just competitive between my friends. But you're right, it definitely did help on the mental side. I definitely felt like when you're like you just things will just clear down, kind of like de-stress. Obviously you're working hard, but like I don't know. It was always like I felt a positive shift in mindset when I set that routine.
Were you guys running together at the same time?
So we didn't live in the same area, but he would run. We'd log it on an app, and then I'd see his run, then I'd go for my run.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, I'm the type of dude I'd strap that shit to my dog and just let him rack it up, and but I'd run too, but I ain't Ryan, it looks like this is mapped out. It look like you're running in circles, dog. What are you doing over there? What
Yeah, literally, I have like a field close to me, just laps, like 10 laps or so. Just keep going.
really? You would do laps too?
Yeah, just keep going.
So I used to do like go for jogs and runs and the whole nine too. And sometimes if one of the fellas was doing it and they wanted to go for a run or jog, I'd go with them. It is entirely different. When you really can just get into your own head, it's one thing. When you got someone side by side with you, it really does turn into like, I can't slow down. I ain't slowing down
Yeah,
for this dude. And then when you get to the finish, when you get to like when you're like returning back to the beginning where your cars are at, don't fucking matter every goddamn time you picking it up. And you have to be there before him. And the problem is he's doing
100%.
the same thing to you. And it's like, are we doing this, Playboy? An hour in, we're gonna do this, aren't we? It just happens every time. He's like, God
Just
damn it, man,
going.
I'm
Yeah,
exhausted.
yeah.
It got to a point where it's like, can't do this every time. I can't jog with someone else because I couldn't keep that up. It's like mentally, it's too much, man. It was too much.
Especially yourself constantly. Yeah.
I got a buddy at work whom does ultra marathons,
Hmm.
and his pacing, I think he did one of them was like 100 kilometers, and you were talking about going around the laps, and that's very difficult mentally because the scenery doesn't change. So you really got to get into your mind's eye. And another buddy at work was because my friend who does the ultra marathons is super duper humble, and the other guy at work was saying he didn't tell you is this was an event, large laps, but laps nonetheless, not around a track, but laps nonetheless around that it's all lapped out. And his pacing for the final lap was only marginally slower than the first lap. 100
Really?
kilometers, pace never slowed. Just 100 kilometers, refused to lower that pace over and over and over, refused to drop pace. The mental fortitude, like this dude, and he's the quietest, humblest. He's like our IT nerd dude. in the office. God bless if he's listening to this. I say that with love, my man. He's, but he's, you would never think he's so quiet and shy. You would never think the mental fortitude he has refuses to drop pace.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, 100 kilometers, man. You kidding me? You get me out there 100 meters, I'm gonna start slowing down a little bit. You're like, all right, I'm running out of steam. I won't quit, but it's a whole nother deal to not slow down at all. Um,
That's insane.
when you were coming up, did you watch sports when you were like a
Yeah,
kid?
so I watched rugby, bit of football, bit of basketball mainly. And I I'm now starting. I watched WWE, then I switched over. So I watched UFC, and like I dip in and out.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Who did you watch in the UFC?
Um, Israel, um,
Adesanya, yeah. He's fighting
I
today,
just
man.
don't know. Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Dog. Let me get your prediction real quick. When this drops, we'll
Yeah,
know if you're right or wrong. Who do you think he wins? Loses? Gets the title back?
has to. He has to.
It's
You don't think he's got it?
well, he okay. Well, let me say this. Let me say this. So, I mean, Izzy's what, 35 now?
Yeah,
In
yeah, around that.
in fighting, that's not super old. Like guys have been 40 years old and been champ, right? Like Glover Teixeira was like 41 and he was the champ. But battle a lot of battles. A lot of battles. It depends on what happens in your body. Here's a problem when it comes to sports in general. You stick around long enough, your heroes aren't the same near the end, and it gets tough.
Yeah,
Now, like I've seen it, right? Like enough time cycle through. However, that's what makes it special if he pulls off what he's attempting to pull off at
and he
35
wins.
and regain
Exactly.
and he nobody's ever regained the title twice.
Really?
Ever, twice. He regained it when Alex knocked him out and he came back, took it from Alex.
Yeah.
And now he's attempting to regain it once again. Nobody's ever done that in the UFC. That's why I'm like, what he's doing is, historically speaking, doesn't happen.
That's gonna be that mental fortitude you're talking about. That's gonna come into play there. He's gonna have to
100%.
send it.
It's, yeah, it's very, very difficult. It's tough, man. Who am I cheering for? I like Izzy. Drickus is, yeah, I mean, he's a character. He talks a lot of smack. I didn't super like when he was talking about Sean Strickland and he
Yeah.
got into like his dad and stuff and like freaking that got
Oh, I
weird.
think I saw a bit of that. Yeah.
When he was Sean Strickland, I'd said on a podcast, like he had alluded to like abuse and
Mm.
Drickus brought that up. Like, I'll beat you like your dad or some shit. And it's like, God damn, man. That's all right, man. Let's settle down. Holy shit.
Crazy. Yeah.
Uh, like, here's the problem. This day and age, we're all on social media and you could find out so much about each other. Like yesteryear, your background could be totally you. Like before social media, and if you look back at previous sports eras and all different sports, they wouldn't know something unless you wanted them to. You just never bring it up in an interview. How would they ever know your background? You could completely make up your background. In social media nowadays, good luck.
Yeah.
They know who your girl is. You and your girl break up, they'd be like, dog, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Friggin', it was everyone knew Russell Orhey's girlfriend. Russell Orhey and her break up. In
Yeah.
the comments, I would hear stuff like, "Man, he ain't been the same since him and his girl broke up." But it's like, what the fuck? It's like, it's,
Like that's people are crazy and they'll keep track of everything and they'll be more invested than yourself. And it's crazy.
it's nuts, man. And this is the environment that you're growing up in, and the environment that you're not only growing up in, but like you're coming up in at an early age. Thousands of people around the world are watching you. You think about this kind of thing, like how is that being a teenager and having thousands of people watch you, and you're like, God, you know,
It's, there definitely is the scary element because obviously there are people around that I've seen have like a mass following very quickly and then lose it all because of either something they've said or something that's been brought up from the past that they've done. But I feel like even before the following, I've been like media trained in the sense like I feel like for me personally, I feel like it's common knowledge to know what's acceptable to say and what's not to say. But what you can't control, obviously, is things that's happened in the past. But I feel like you just got to be very mindful of things that you talk about and things you say. Um, but besides that, I don't think it's too bad having like that many people on you. You just, like I said, just got to know what to say.
Well, the thing is, even if you handle yourself a certain way with social media, if you like go out with your friends and be a 19-year-old, somebody's got a phone, somebody's got like you just be yourself, but you're freaking 19, man. Dog, when I was 19, Jesus, I would have lost everything. It's, um, and it wouldn't even be posts necessarily. It'd be like, hey, you're just doing you. You're just being you,
Yeah,
but you're like, you gotta, it's totally different. Or even to the point where you get a girl you're dating, you think it is serious, and you're thinking this is the girl I'm gonna rock with for here on out. So like, but you're not gonna hide it. It is what it is. So you're posting, and people see you got a girl, whatever. You break up, and now everybody's talking. Like the world is talking about it. The whole world, man, is analyzing. The whole world. Oh, did you hear this? Like, you know what I mean? That's a whole nother level of.
yeah.
It's this is the type of situation.
I feel like that would be like a very hard one to overcome. And then I feel like that's why people tend to give a lot of thought into how much of their personal life they let show. But obviously, it's very hard to control it because, like you said, people can find out anything about you these days. So you literally just have to roll with the punches and like whatever happens, happens. You adapt in the moment. If people want to talk about, let's say you break up, you just gotta own it.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the weirdest situations, like weird in the sense that it caught me off guard. After the first Sheffield event, everybody was coming on the podcast and just opening up about their past and what they had been through. Tycho came on, literally was crying, and it was a crazy backstory. But a lot of them, a lot of people came, a lot of the athletes came on, just opened up, like, let me tell you my story. And it was wild. But the one that rattled me is Taylor Atwood, whom had been on the podcast since 2016. Like we've been doing this, I've been doing this for a hot minute. Okay, that's before you were alive. Okay, you okay, but Taylor Atwood, who's been on the podcast like dozens of times over the years, said, I think I need to tell my real story. And I'm like, what? I mean, I've heard your story a million
Yeah.
times. Like you've already, I already know you. Yeah, you started lifting when you were young. You went to the CFL for American style football. And he was 5'6" on the field with like 300-pound monsters with 20,000 people yelling. Like he's an athletically gifted guy,
Yeah.
obviously, right? But for him to get that far, pro football. But I was like, yeah, I know your story, dog. Like, all right, we could rehash it because some people, new fans come to the sport, they hadn't heard it. Yeah, let's do it again. And then he came on and he's like, everybody's got the wrong impression about me that I'm the golden boy because I win and all this is before he'd ever lost the world title. He's like, I'm ready to tell you I'm not your golden boy. And then he broke into his actual background story. And to the point of when we were just saying, some people, it's very difficult, but you can hold it a secret. My man had a secret to tell. And he talked about growing up in a trailer park, um, parents split, drug abuse, and the whole nine. And like getting rides home from the coach and not wanting the coach to not get dropped off up the street, don't want the coach to know where I'm going, like the whole like it was crazy, man. Staying late for practice because he didn't want to go home and like it was just wild to hear him say it. And he literally, this is Taylor Atwood, as he's telling me the story, his bottom lip starts shaking a little bit as he got into his mother and what she was dealing with. And he was a kid. And he's like, and I had to deal with this shit. And his lips started shaking. I'm like, holy smokes. And it's cliche to say, but you know how the expression you never know what's going on behind the scenes with somebody.
Yeah,
We see him a certain way. When you grow up and are raised like that, you will always be that guy in your mind.
yeah.
So when people see you and interact with you, they forget and they talk to you and about you a certain way. But you are that kid. Like you were raised like that. And we just never knew. We never knew this whole time until he's like, let me tell you who I am. And then it kind of made sense with how aggressively he like attacks the competition, attacks competing, and like you try to take what he's got, he's like he's gonna scrap it out with everything he's got to like he's like super. It makes more sense. You get more context, and when he made it, and at his peak, he had the world record, the world title in every single formula, Wilks, GL points, dots. He had all of them. Like he was the undisputed king, and he would
Yeah,
let everybody know. Like he'd be like, "I am the king. I am this guy," and people are like, "Oh, he's so boastful." It's like you don't know where he came from. You know,
it's
for
true.
him, like he's validated. Like, what is he validating himself? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He grew up in a fucking trailer home where he's ashamed for anyone to know where he's at. So he'd get dropped off up the street and he'd be afraid to get home. And what? Yeah, he's validating himself. Yes, he is. But
I remember
but if
listening to that podcast that he spoke about all that stuff, and I thought like you said, no one would ever know, and it's just so crazy, like his story and like how much he's achieved, like that you can't do anything but like get behind the guy because it's such an amazing story. The fact he managed to pull through and be a world champion and all of that.
yeah, and he's another guy that eventually the unbeatable lost. And it happens, man. Like eventually it's gonna happen to all of us, right? It happens to every single person.
Yeah.
And he's starting to come back now. He's trying to come back now. And it's interesting because when in your prime and him in his prime, he was so dominant. Some people couldn't wait until he lost. Because if you get too dominant for too long, people are going to start rooting against you, right? They're
Yeah.
like, all right, man, you've had your day. Like they want the upset to happen. Well, like Jurgens and Russell. Russ was winning for so damn long. You want to
Everyone's
shake up to make it interesting.
yeah.
And but once you lose, like Taylor lost, and then injuries happen, haters start piling on. All of a sudden, if you stick around and come back, you will convert some people who are cheering for you to lose. And they're like, because everyone loves a comeback story.
That story. Exactly.
Everybody loves it. And all of a sudden, Taylor's like, I'm a sentimental underdog. I've never been an underdog. Now I'm an underdog. It's like, holy shit. You know, it's it's funny how it works if you stick around long enough. But yeah, I mean, your story is way at the beginning at this point, huh?
Early days, early days.
Early days. When you're watching this, like when you watch, because I seen what you're posting up in training.
Yeah.
When you're watching Bob Matthews win the world championships, what are you telling yourself? You're teenager, but your training numbers are right there.
Um, I'm literally, yeah, that's like, I'm like, I know within myself that I have the ability to compete with the open. And it's like, it's so motivating to see it because that's where I want to get to. And that's what I know I can get to. And like, I'm like a firm believer in like, if you want to be the best, you got to face the best. So like, I always compare myself to the best in my weight class, regardless of age. Like, always just looking up and seeing, okay, I beat this person. Who's next? Like, just always climbing up.
And do you think you got a shot at the open world record at the junior worlds?
100%. I'm gunning for that. The dead, the total. I think both are within my reach. I've just got to obviously stick to the game plan. Obviously, I've done the hard work now. Literally just follow the peak through, and then junior worlds. I can show everyone what I can do.
Dude, it's crazy because in look at I seen what you're posting up in the gym. This is no pie in the sky overreach where it's like, oh, okay, whatever. No, this is legit. You legitimately got a shot at this. When you're watching the world, like this is Bob Matthews. This dude is. a phenom himself. So for you to be a teenager saying, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna take his world record," is insane. What are people around you saying?
Um, to be honest, everyone's like, there's a mix. Some people are like, there's no need for you to do it. But I don't understand that mindset because if you know you can do it, why not push yourself and like go all the way? And then other people are kind of, rooting for you. They're behind you. They're like, bro, like push it. Like if you can get there, work it. Yeah, there's like a real mix to be honest. I've got like both sides weighing it up, but I know in myself, just gotta push myself and get there to be honest.
You drop the hammer. Pull back. Like, you know what I'm saying? Drop the fucking hammer, son. I understand where maybe if they were worried that while overreaching, you start missing, and
Yeah.
heaven forbid you like lose or something. You're like, oh my God, but that's not going to happen. I mean, come on. This is so far out of reach for someone to take you. You could show up and put on like if you break the open world record at juniors as a teenager, you understand how much everyone's going to go nuts.
That's the thing. I'm so like excited for that. I just like that's a statement. I'm ready to make a statement, isn't it?
Yeah, 100 for sure. And how do you feel about Rondell? And Rondell is returning to the IPF, long awaited return. And I mean, Bob Matthews is targeting Rondell. And for a lot of people, I've had tons of DMs that because he's not on the IPF world stage, he's not in Sheffield, people somewhat forget about him. But there's a lot of people who are like, my friend, he's the pound for pound king. It's difficult. The bigger you are, the less respect you get on the pound for pound rankings because the formulas don't favor the bigger man at this point when what the formulas we're using. But they're saying, and this is what's your impression about that Rondell, and also Rondell was saying, and a lot of people echoed this sentiment. What I did to the 120s when he dropped 1,045 kilo total a year ago, what I did to the 120s is bigger than what Perk did to the 74s. The spread, it's more dominant. What do you feel about the return of Rondell, the respect for pound, etc.?
So first of all, the return of Rondell, that's like I genuinely that's so exciting. Like the prospect that he's coming back. Or was he ever in the IPL?
Way before he was in 2018, he was a junior at the Junior Worlds. Dog, this is kind of foreshadowing. He won Junior Worlds and out totaled everybody in the Open. Now, who does that remind you of, young man?
That's the blueprint. So yeah, him returning to the IPF, that's like I genuinely think that's one of the best things to happen. It's I've spoken to a lot of people about this, and like the general consensus I've gotten is that the 120s, not that they were a dead class, but there was not a lot of limelight on them like in the past couple of years, just because like apparently the 105s used to be close to their total, like no one was doing anything crazy. And I don't know, I feel like him coming, Bob coming, like people upcoming, Etienne, you got Jonah, like it's brought that hype back to the 120s. And obviously Rondell's leading the pack on that. Um, he's right now, obviously, he's like the pinnacle of 120s. His total's just crazy. And I don't know, I just feel like it's good to push. Like, you mentioned in the podcast before about most weight classes have like that outlier person. And I feel like it's good that every weight class has that because you're going to keep on working hard and pushing yourself because you want to beat them. So I definitely say like it's amazing that he's back. And then in terms of the pound for pound thing, um, who in terms of percentages, who did more?
Ooh, like in like this, like extending the world record, like
Yeah,
Sheffield
it's like
style.
10 world record. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't crunch the numbers, but that's a good question.
because I remember you putting your story. I think uh Rondell was at 7.5% or something like that.
It was nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
Bob has mitigated that, but it was nuts when he did it.
Oh, yeah. Um, I definitely say when it comes to things like that, um, Rondell probably gets more hype in the sense because obviously the big man lifts bigger numbers, so it looks more impressive on the pound for pound scale, even though he's heavier. But when Perks did that and he dropped it, like everyone went insane. That there was no one who wasn't like, who is this guy? Like, what the hell? Like he's just done something so crazy. Like he's beat the weight class above him, which Rondell hasn't done. So in terms of the pound for pound king, if you're basing it on that 10:45 total, it goes to Perks. But when Rondell returns and does what he's gonna do, I think he might be undisputed.
And here's a tough thing: beating the weight class above you, dog. That's Jesus Oliveira.
That's the problem.
Like that's Rondell would be like, come on, man. He's like, that's a big ask. Um, yeah, it's difficult, man. Well, like even talking about Jesus, he'll never get the respect he probably deserves for pound. It's pound for pound is it's like something we made up that isn't going to include the bigger men.
It's not favored for the big boys. I think it was like from the way I look at it, it was made for the lighter boys so they could be looked at comparatively to the big boys because
Right.
obviously to the average viewer, the heavier weights you see, the more impressive it is. Like unless no one really gets down into the nitty-gritties of what's their body weight to weight lifted ratio. So I feel like it's a way to appreciate the lighter weight classes that don't get as much love just based on the sheer like load that they're lifting.
By the time Rondell comes back, will you be able to be a rival of his on the platform?
So the in terms of the plan, I'm doing Junior Worlds, hopefully break the open record there. Then I'm doing Open Nats, the GB Open Nats in November. Um, look to win there. Then I'll be able to face him on the Open Worlds next year on the stage. So yeah, when he's first retired, I'll be one of the first competitors against him.
Isn't this crazy? I mean, it's happening so quickly for you. You'll be 20 at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are both phenoms, obviously, and sky is the limit for you. Are you even cutting weight yet to make
Uh,
120?
no. So now I'm back under. I went on holiday, got over, but then once I came back and got back to my normal diet, I'm back under. I'm like 119, 118, 119. So I'm just maintaining around it.
And I mean, if you break the open world record at Junior Worlds, it's gonna be crazy. But if you, it's gonna be crazy. Everybody's gonna be talking about it like, holy crap. But if you do that, by the time next summer rolls around and open worlds, 100%, you would be up around that range for Rondell and you to clash. Who would have thought this, man? Who would have thought, dude, in 2022 in Istanbul, me and Gavin would be talking to a guy who'd be rivaling Rondell. You,
It's
you
crazy how
probably wouldn't
far.
have even known who Rondell Hunt was.
I honestly didn't. No, not at that point.
Man, with that, if you could talk to that kid, what would you do? What would you tell 2022 Nonso?
Stay on the right path and just continue. Don't be afraid to move up a weight class. I think the biggest change for me happened when I moved from 105 to 120 in terms of my total and how I was. But it's because I was fighting that change for so long. Like I was doing cardio twice a day, every day without fail to stay at
Hmm.
105. So as soon as I like, and obviously I'm young and my body like wants to grow. So as soon as I stopped like suppressing that growth, just I made like leaps and bounds.
Do you track calories?
So I did. Now obviously I did it for a couple months. Now I kind of know it just off the top of my head. I eat like the same things every day. So I'm roughly now about 2.8 a day, 2.8K calories.
2,800?
Yeah.
Dog, eat slightly more calories than you. How the hell is that possible? Dude,
Um,
you like thank God. I would have thought like you would eat your parents out of a house and home because you are massive. They got lucky. They dodged a bullet there.
yeah, I'm not like a big morning person, so I don't eat a lot in the morning. I don't eat in the morning, so I'll just eat my lunch and my dinner. I'll eat like right before I train and then eat dinner. I'm not like a big eater, yeah.
Dude, okay, so I eat like about 3,000 calories a day. This is me restricting, man. This is,
Really?
this is me. This is me being disciplined. I swear to God, I got a fat man inside me, and he's dying to get out, and I'm fighting that motherfucker every day to keep him inside. It's a daily battle. Not today, you don't win, sir. Today we're still 6 pack Lapadat, but God bless. Freaking so in terms of your well, who trains you?
James Adcock.
And how did you find because he was in Turkey as well?
Yeah.
Were you trained by him in Turkey? Or is that how you guys
No,
met?
I was with him before. Yeah, we met there. We actually met at the Nationals before that Worlds. Um, and then I met him again there. Then I left my current coach and I was looking around and he trained at the gym I was at and he would just give me advice like we talk. And I really liked like the advice he gave me. Obviously it worked. And then got in conversation with him and then he became my coach. And then since then put on like 200 odd kilos on my total. So shout out to him.
Damn. Yeah, he's a good dude. I've seen him at Junior World, silent worker. Like he's a solid guy.
Yeah.
What's going on in Britain when it comes to the powerlifting scene? You guys have like monsters on the way up. Like there's always been some increase, but it seems like the last year and a bit, it's been crazy. And then obviously climaxing with Jurens pulling off a massive upset, like a massive victory. It's been crazy. What's going on in powerlifting in Britain?
Do you know what I actually think it is? It was the America sweep talk. I think we didn't want to be counted out. Obviously, everyone's talking about America's going to sweep. They're talking about America's going to sweep open, juniors, sub juniors, and obviously, I think Joe said it before. It's like Europe versus America. So now everyone's putting on their best shows, trying to do everything they can to put some respect on GB's name. I feel like yeah, right now everyone's kind of got the fire lit underneath them and like steaming ahead. And I also think it is also because of what America, like the talent America's bringing. You've got it across in open, in juniors, even the subs as well. You've got like some monsters there, so everyone's trying to up their game.
How big was the win for Jurens back home in Britain?
It was massive. Like it was actually insane. Literally, you couldn't go on any socials or speak to anyone about any. Everyone going, "Did you see Jurors? Did you see that?" Like I know everyone was watching it, and it was actually like a crazy moment. Obviously, because Jurgen hadn't had the comp he wanted before, and then he came out, and obviously biggest upset ever for America, but for us, greatest victory, and it was so well deserved to be honest.
Friggin', it was such a wild moment. And like obviously Britain to get a world champion is huge, but to get it in that fashion. And I also think Sheffield being in the UK, I mean, obviously in Sheffield, but that event being there will only help Britain in terms of popularity with powerlifting. It has to grow. When you have the biggest single day event in the sport is in the UK, it's got to impact. Have you been to Sheffield?
I haven't had the chance yet, and I was getting tickets this year, and they sold out before I got one. I'm so upset.
Oh, damn. But here's the thing. I don't know how you're going to get there, but you got to get there. How far away is Sheffield from you?
It's not that far, like an hour and a half on the train.
Dog, you got to be there, man.
I'll be there.
Especially because you break the open world record at the Junior Worlds, people are going to go nuts. Just being around everywhere we walk in Sheffield for like 3 days before and after. It's nothing but like powerlifters and powerlifting fans, and people are bugging out on the street, being like, "Did you see? I just saw insert big name lifter. I just saw insert big name." People are all over the place. People are all over the lobby, like in the hotel where all the lifters are, just hanging out. Just like the hotel lobby, and we're at the same one every year. I think we're at the same one this year. Is there's like a bar, restaurant, and everybody's in there in chairs chilling. And it's if you break the
Nice.
open world record, it'd be huge to be there, man. So if it's 90 minutes of your day, I would
Oh,
spend a
I'm
day in
there.
Sheffield.
100%.
Just spend a
100%.
day in Sheffield. Even if you don't get tickets, just chill. Just go in there, hang
Yeah.
out on one of the days and sightsee, meet people. Drop me a line, man. We'll hang out, you know? Um, for sure it'll be worth your while. And if you can get your hands on tickets, I mean, look, you break the open world record. If I was you, I'd be shooting messages to whoever your rep is within SPD and be like, hey, man, do you think, I don't know if you got any on reserve for athletes? Because they could obviously, I mean, I have no idea what their situation is with tickets, but EB, there is a bonus for everybody, anyways, right? I mean, if there isn't any, cool. I swear to God, just being in the city and soaking it up, being available and hanging
Yeah.
out, it would be worth it because it
That
is a
sounds like the
crazy
energy
event.
there's insane. Yeah.
Dog, dog. What SPD is doing, like it's like a before and after. Once they turned on the machine, so to speak, and now they're doing like SPD rally, and they're going to do more and more events. It's a whole nother thing now, man. And I mean, who knows? Maybe at the next one you'll actually be there competing. That'd be wild. Because we even had a direct 120s head-to-head battle at Sheffield.
I know we haven't. I don't even think we've got a 120 going if Bob doesn't go.
What do you think about that?
I think it's a shame. I think it's just a massive shame because it's a chance for, Bob to like compete in Sheffields and show how far above the 120 world record he can go before Rondell gets here. Um, and also it's just a shame for the 120 class. I feel like you gotta have someone there to show what we're about.
Do you think he's going? Do you think he's
Yeah, I think he's trolling. He has to. I can't think of why he wouldn't go.
I know. It's crazy. I can't wrap my head around like I see only pluses. Only pluses. It's an event like, man, talk about life events. It would be crazy not to enjoy that life event, no matter what happens. Taylor Atwood was crazy injured by the time he made his appearance at Sheffield. And he was like, I'm going. I mean, I'm gonna have this moment. Like this is gonna happen for me. Like I don't care. I'm not 100%. I'm not whatever. Yeah, man, I can't imagine he doesn't go. If he
Yeah,
doesn't, if he doesn't, it's like, what the heck? That is the wildest. Marcellus is on the podcast saying Bobb is different. Guaranteed, Bobb is different in terms of goal setting and how he likes to challenge himself and the whole night. Cool, but this is something else. This is something that if he doesn't go, it'd be like, okay, Bobb is different, different. I would have to ask him so many follow up questions about that.
honestly.
I mean, I would yeah, I couldn't imagine a scenario. But if I had to guess, I think he's going. However, so he's been kind of back and forth. I remember when I interviewed him after American Nationals, he said
Yeah.
he's 70-30. He's going 105. Ends up going 120. Makes sense. It's the sensible decision because you could do whatever you want to the world record and win worlds and then go 1-5 for Sheffield. Perfect. And then the ability to win Sheffield, the chances of it shoot way up if you go 105. Now he's talking, he ain't going back down to 105, but he is literally 105 point something when he's at world championships and won. I don't understand. I don't know which way this guy's going.
And that's, I think that's what makes him like him. The fact that he has that ability to do that. Not I think besides him and Paris, I can't think who else can like dominate it across two weight classes and kind of pick and choose where will I go. And that's just Bob in it. Like it just makes sense that that's him.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think when you start heavily peaking and Rondell returns, tough decisions will have to be made. He can't be a 105. Like, he said infamously the day before Worlds, don't get clapped by a 105.
What if I, yeah.
No, that was fire. That was fire, by the way. Like it's so confident. It is such a confident day before telling everybody, do not get clapped by 105. And I mean, he did his damn thing. He's going to get away with that being 105 now. But when you are 100%, when you start peaking, and we're not, man, I don't even know when you're going to start peaking. You're 19. But when you are, because you're talking about the world record at 19. So when you're like 23, I don't know what the hell that looks like. Like, I don't know what the total is going to be. You're going to go back to this podcast and make, man, that was cute. It was, but when you're 100% peaking in your prime, Rondell returns. Do you think a 105 Bob is going to be able to pull off what he's pulling off, or is he going to have to commit to 120?
Nah, he'll have to commit. I think is there's no way that I could allow myself to get clapped by 105, and I'm sure Rondell will have that same mindset. I think the total will be pushed. He's gonna have to fully commit, and then we'll see a 120 Bob, which is a completely different story, of course. That is dangerous in himself. But I think the don't get clapped by 105 series, it'll have to come to a close at that point.
Well, the day before juniors, you got to post up and say, don't get clapped by a teenager.
I like that one. I like that one.
Everybody will go nuts because they'll know exactly what you're referring to. They'll know exactly what the because you're about to take Bob's world record in your teen. It's crazy. What Bob did is crazy as a 105. What you're doing as a teenager is equally as crazy, maybe more. It's what the good thing about the 120s were for a while there wasn't a depth. Now it's
Yeah.
now we got people like you guys with like, what do you want? The young phenom? Do you want the David versus Goliath that Bob brings, or like the returning king like Rondell when he comes back?
Got a bit of everything.
You got everything all of a sudden. Yeah, we'll see. And Etienne from Lebanon is a phenomenal lifter. He didn't have the day he wanted at Worlds, but he dials that in and brings the full package. He's got a monster deadlift. Dude, you got a freaking monster deadlift. How the hell is it possible? You're hitting 400 keys. The world record period is 410.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
Well,
obviously that is obviously within reach for you.
we're gunning for that at Junior Worlds.
Damn, man. The biggest
Heaviest
deadlift
stuff.
in the world.
Heaviest stuff I need. I wanna be able to say that was me.
Right. So when you're, because okay, put it this way though. So obviously you don't want to risk the total world, because the total world record means more. The open total
Yeah.
world record means more than the deadlift world record.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on how everything plays out by the time you get to your last
Yeah.
deadlift. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Because that's the bigger one, is don't get clapped by a teenager, not on deadlifts, but on total. But yeah, if you grab the open world record total and then the biggest deadlift in the IPF, dude, talk about a powerful statement. That's you clapping Bob and Jesus. You know,
I didn't think about it like that.
that's crazy. That's the wildest, man. I think everything's going to start moving pretty quickly for you after that. By the time World Championships rolls around, right now, so I saw a post and it was a picture. Do you know the TV show Friends?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a picture of the cast of the TV show Friends, and they're all in a private jet. And the TV producer of the show Friends said, and they were all nobodies. They hadn't even done a single episode. I took that picture of them on the plane, and he goes, I want you guys to go out Vegas, have an amazing time. It'll be the last time in your life you're going to be able to mingle in public and nobody's going to know who you are, be bothering you, and all the rest of it. Your life is about to change once this drops. And they went in Vegas, and this is like Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox and all the like the famous, right? They're doing whatever the hell they want. You see that picture, and they have no idea what's about to happen for them. And different, but hear me out. If you do what you're capable of doing at Junior Worlds, that's it, man. You clap Bobb and Jesus, at least in our powerlifting community, you're not walking around Vegas and people are stopping you. But in the powerlifting, right? You're like, dog, am I going to get that? No. Okay, let's back that up. No, no. Dog, am I going to get a sitcom? No. Okay, let's hold up. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. But within the powerlifting community, that's a wrap. Everybody's going to know. You think
That's
about that?
yeah. I like that's probably been my biggest driving factor is literally like making a statement for people to know who I am. And like my biggest thing has always been like, regardless of how old I am, like how short I've been in powerlifting, is making that big statement and showing everyone that I can be the best.
At a young, at 20.
20 years old.
I mean, that's the age Mike Tyson was when he became the heavyweight champion of the world. And he said, it's just nuts, man. He's a phenom, obviously. And he said his last fight before the title fight, when they gave him that last fight, he said he had tons of anxiety because he knew what it meant. He knew like this is it. I win this one, there's no going back. It's all big now. Do you kind of what do you feel when you think about the future? You think about open worlds, clashing with Rondell, open worlds, potentially clashing with Bobb. You think about Sheffield. You think about everything that's about to happen moving forward. How do you feel about it?
I'm excited. Obviously, there's some nerves. It's like, okay, this is like the proper big league. It's like this is what you've been gunning for. Now you're here. I feel like I'll hit like another gear when I get there. And it's like, okay, now let me see how far I can push myself. Obviously, there are some nerves of what if I get there, I underperform or all that. But then I remember I've worked hard, I put in the groundwork, and just the biggest one is just excitement, excitement to push it, excitement to be there.
It's going to be interesting, man. Especially you at your age being involved in the mix. Is there pressure, or do you think the pressure's not on yet because it's Bobb and Rondell and whatnot are in the picture?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the pressure's on yet in terms of yeah, not in terms of the open yet, just because it's for me, it kind of feels like not that I'm gonna come out of nowhere, but it's gonna be quite a shock for people because obviously people expect me to do well, but I feel like getting that heaviest ever, if I need it on deads and breaking that total record, that makes a statement. Then people are like, okay, who is this kid? Then it's the pressure's on, okay, open nats if I do it, worlds or Sheffields, whatever it is, and then it's like people can get behind me.
I think you're entirely right. Think you the pressure right now, it's almost like you got a secret and you're about to share it. But like the hardcore see you coming. Like and people obviously in the UK and you got a
Yeah,
following online, but that's gonna feel like small potatoes to what's about to happen if you achieve what you want to achieve. But there's always so in if it whether or not you hit it at Junior Worlds or not, it feels inevitable. Like it's going to happen. It
yeah,
just depends on the timeline. Joe Bornstein came on the podcast and he was saying 860 won't be enough. And obviously 860 is what Russ hit. And this is before Russ and Jurgens clashed at Worlds. And he's like, 860 won't be enough. Then he went to junior nationals and suffered an injury in squat and ended up, I mean, obviously not hitting 860. Prolonged the goal, but the goal was still 860. Smashes 865 at SBD rally and comes back and says, I told you 860 wasn't going to be enough. And it's one of those you're going up, up, up. At some point, there'll be small or a setback. It won't always be up, up, up. That's not life. But if you hold firm and keep the belief, because when Joe Bornstein stumbled for a hot minute, there were whispers. There were people entering DMs because he was on the podcast, definitely taking shots not at Russell personally, but at Russell's position, saying that's going to be me. 860 is not enough. and people being like, we hear this every year. And then when and like I'm gonna hype it. And then when he goes out there and gets injured and doesn't hit 860, obviously, because he's injured, people return and in the DMs and are like, told you, we always see this kind of thing. This is what comes when it comes to hype. How do you feel are you like mentally prepared for that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I definitely I have a lot of respect for Joe for like I feel like making bold statements is it takes a lot of balls to do that because you've got to know like you've got to have the personal fortitude to know like I am going to hit this like I am so confident in myself like the whole world can know. For me personally, I've got that same type of mentality. When I make a statement, I know I can back it up. Like me saying that I can break the open world record, like mentally, I've already done it. Like I'm there. Like I'm in that zone where it's like all I need to do now is execute. I've done the hard work. Mentally, I'm prepared for all of it. And like it goes back to that pressure thing, doesn't it? Like, I want people to expect me to do it because I know I can do it. Like I love
Mm.
that pressure, that excitement of like you need this lift, you need that, like you need those kilos. And then obviously the big thing for me, I love my deadlift. That final deadlift, you come out to piece everything together for that, to break that record is just like I'm already in that zone. Like I'm waiting for that moment. When that moment
Mm.
comes, I know like I'm ready for it. Like I can feel the tingles already.
Oh, come on, dude. What are you talking about? We'll come down to the last deadlift, and here it is. It's like, oh my God. And what number is going to be on that bar for that last deadlift? It'd be crazy, man. Have you already worked out all the numbers?
I've got like different variations of them, but I know roughly where it's at.
Yeah, I guess you'll have amazing day, average day, not great day, and all three,
Yeah,
and whatever that looks like. The advantage of youth, you could, it will be almost inevitable, right? It's like, all
yeah,
right, whether or not it's now, it's going to happen. Like Joey B. All right,
yeah.
cool. It didn't happen when I picked my shot, but it's going to happen. It's just I'm going to keep coming up to scratch, and eventually I'm going to knock it out the park. Like,
100%.
yeah. So it's easier to fluff things off that way when that kind of thing happens. What did you think when Jurens and Russ clash, and then Russ finally takes it out for the first time?
Mhm.
What was your impression in terms of like the reaction of the crowd and how like Russ told me, he's like, "What the hell, man? Is everybody cheering against me? What was this all about?"
It's like initially I saw it from Russ's perspective. Oh, well, firstly, obviously, I was happy that Jones won celebrating. Then I did kind of take a step back. I was like, this is kind of crazy. Like, imagine being Russ and everyone's gone wild that you lost. Like, that must have been such a like humbling experience. But this, then like I feel like it's more to do with the storyline than Ross personally. It's just the
Mm.
fact that he was dominant for so long, and then someone's come along and they finally like dethrone the king. It's just more people are following the storyline. But I do feel like from what I've seen of Russ, he's definitely got the mentality that won't hold him back at all, like in the slightest. Like if anything, it's just gonna like fire him up more. And obviously they're clashing at Sheffield's. I think it'll be another interesting.
I think it is a victim of your own success. You people are going to root against you eventually. It's just going to happen. You've been on top too long, and eventually people are like, "Man, I've had enough of the Yankees always winning." Like whatever sports franchise it was, you're going to go down. Plus the sweep talk. And Russ is like Mr. USA. He epitomizes the American dream. And it becomes like, let's take out their big fish. The biggest of the big fish, let's take them out and see what happens. What do you foresee for your future? You're 20 years old. Well, you're 19. You'll be 20 years old when you make your appearance on Open Worlds. How do you see this playing out for yourself? What are some of the things you want to achieve, not just on the platform, social media wise, the platforms that you have there? Because doors will open up for you, possibilities. What are some of the things you want to do?
Um, Obviously on the platform is literally just push Rondell and Bob as far as I can. You know, gun gun everyone down, no one's safe, just whatever it takes. And then obviously in terms of social media, the sport's growing. Hopefully it continues to grow. Um, I've already got sponsors and that, but literally just like bigger names, bigger companies. I think people have mentioned it before, working like what's to say that powerlifting can't work with Nike or Adidas or whatever, like just massive corporations. Um, yeah, and literally just I feel like a lot of people as well want me to start a YouTube and document, might do that as well. Literally
for
just
sure.
be more immersed in the sport, bring more awareness to the sport and I don't know, just kind of lift it up. Be part of like the face of powerlifting as it continues to grow.
We haven't had someone in the 120s who'd be the face, like our Michael Jordan, our, you know what I mean? Not in the 120s
Yeah,
yet. It's always like it seems like it's always a 74, but to an extent, a Russ in terms of just branding and marketing value, like we haven't had a 120.
yeah,
And you, why not? You like if you think about a 120, they're massive men, larger than life. So when you meet them, they are exactly who you think they would be. Like when people meet, like Tony Cliff is a monster. You know that like they're he's a massive man. When you meet him in real life and you hear he's a world champion powerlifter, like the general public who doesn't know powerlifting, it's exactly what you would expect. Yeah, yeah. He's a monster and extremely strong. The weight's the whole nine. I'm sure a 120 can fill that void. I'm sure a 120 could be like, here I am. I could be the flagship for the sport. We haven't seen it yet, but we need the makings of. There's got to be hype around it. Need somebody who will dive into, like you said, the YouTube and whatnot. And by the way, speaking on YouTube, like you're 19, you could be 30 years old and in the game doing your thing. And if for you or anyone who comes across you at 30, and God knows what you're crushing at 30, like you're probably hitting PRs and gains at 30. You know what I mean? So for anyone who finds you then and goes back and they could see you as a teenager talking like this, it, you know, it's crazy.
it
People will
is.
freak out and be like, it's the equivalent of, and I know it's hard to look in the future, but if you find whatever sports star, if you found like whatever, Michael Jordan, and you found video footage of him being a teenager saying,
Yeah,
I'm going to take all the records in the NBA as a junior, and I'm going to do all this, that, and the other. Like it's you got to document it. If for no other sake, documentary purposes, and putting it out there so people can find it, and later on in life you have it around. But for sure, people want to follow you on YouTube. There's a lot of man, there's a lot of background that people want to find out, especially when you start hitting the numbers you're talking about. People will double back and be like, "How did that happen?" I will give you this video footage if you want to chop it up. But I mean, you could easily sit in front of the camera
yeah.
and repeat it all anyways. But yeah, man, I would say definitely. And you're at an age where you might see some of these things we all talk about right now. Like for instance, Olympics just closed. What do you think about powerlifting in the Olympics? It's kind of funny. Some people say they would not want powerlifting in the Olympics.
Really?
I know, so that's my reaction to it. I'm like, why? But what they think is it could change it. It could mean it could change it in ways that they don't want. I've had people explain this to me where, you know, like it's the opposite direction of say like Mega Money meets like Sheffield, where
Yeah,
it feels a little different. But in my mind's eye, it would be more like the World Championships, which is fine. I mean, you can have both. I think you can have both. Like look at boxing. It's in the Olympics and obviously in the pro ranks. And in the pros, we're talking from 3 rounds a match in the Olympics to 12 rounds in the pros. That's a different sport,
yeah,
my friend.
yeah,
That's like, that's like, you know, the 100-meter dash and the freaking 800. Like it's entirely, you succeed in one doesn't mean you're going to succeed in the other type difference.
yeah.
But same sport, it's boxing. That's why whatever another thing they're afraid about the Olympics is like what it might do incentive wise for certain nations if they're corrupted and how they handle like testing and all the rest of it. Like you might be fearful of that, but you could be fearful of that if we get big on the money side as well. Like
Yeah.
whatever you get large enough, period. These are
It's gonna happen. Yeah, of course.
right, right. It's just going to happen when you grow, right? Incentive changes and whatever. So that's a different conversation in terms of that. I do like how SBD tests every single, they make sure every single athlete going to Sheffield is tested.
Yeah,
Um, and if you get dirt, if you pop for a 2 year, I believe, you can't go to Sheffield. It's got to be because that's when it gets into anabolics and stuff. It's stimulants. I think you're allowed to if it's a stim. I forget. I don't know the exact, but anyways,
yeah.
they're pretty tough on testing, anyways. But back to the original conversation in terms of the Olympics, you can have both. I don't think people are realizing because I've seen it in other sports. It doesn't have to negatively impact.
No, definitely not. I feel like the Olympics in itself is prestigious. Like getting to that point, regardless of if it ruins like money meets and all that, that in itself puts powerlifting on a pedestal. It raises it to a level that it wouldn't reach in having Sheffield get bigger and all of that. Like it changes it. But at the same time, losing Sheffield, I think, would be booting powerlifting in the leg like massively. Like you don't want to lose Sheffields because of what it is. Like you said, we could have both, and I feel like having both and them being different as well. It opens powerlifting up more, if anything, because you can decide which route you want to go down and what you want to chase, and you could have switches. You have big people in both, and I don't know. I just feel like it would elevate the sport again even further.
Think about the talent pool that would be brought into powerlifting. Like people not just a few years ago would have thought what you're doing is insane. A teenager doing this is crazy. Like we had Dennis Cornelius and he was so ahead of the pack at the time. And now it's like, well, we have teenagers who are going to best what he's doing. We have 105s. They're going to best what he's doing. It's that's crazy to think about. And this is because the talent pool is swelling because powerlifting is getting bigger. So it's reaching more people who are like, hey, I think I'll go into powerlifting as opposed to a different sport. Imagine we had the Olympics. What kind of genetic freaks from all over the world are going to be
Hiding
like,
in the corners, they're gonna come out.
it's great because they wouldn't ordinarily have even thought about it. Like when you think about swimming, people were talking about Michael Phelps and the joints and his measurements and how if you actually analyze Michael Phelps, he is built to swim, built like feet as close to humans can get for feet and hands, like flippers type deal. You know,
Yeah,
the dimensions and the way it moves. If the Olympics weren't around, is he going to find swimming?
that's
What's he going to end up
wouldn't
doing?
know. Exactly.
It's got to be a casting call out there. And in terms of genetic freaks, I mean, I still talk to people and talk about the world championships and whatnot, and they talk about the Olympics like powerlifting's in it. And like, yeah, I saw this one powerlifter in the Olympics. I think she was from China. And I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Yeah, it's not, I wish. No, that's not powerlifting, man. People still don't necessarily know. So we haven't maxed out the full potential of
Definitely.
of who we could bring in. Did you watch the Olympics?
Yeah, yeah.
What did you think? What sports do you watch?
So main one I watched was the track and field. Um, I think it was an amazing watch to be honest. Obviously Noah Lyles and him talking about NBA and not being the champions of the world and him coming, bringing it together and winning. I think that was like interesting to watch just to see, like obviously 100 meters, like that's it. It's 100 meters to decide who wins and all of that. And for him to like talk his shit and then come and piece it together and win this, I don't know. I just thought it was like a mad ballsy move from him.
He's a big shit talker, huh?
100%.
It's so bold. Like, did you see the footage of the way he like frolicked out on frolics the best word I could try to describe. The way he went onto the track before he ran, it was like so cocky. Like it's like, dude, you if you are not locked in, there's no time to recover. If you were not locked
That's
in
the
and
thing.
he literally frolicked is the best way. It literally, if you picture someone on the countryside frolicking through. I saw a meme one time. He's like, I just want to fucking frolic one time. I just want to pull my cart aside and just frolic in the countryside. And just someone's gonna drive by me like, what the fuck is that guy doing? Just swinging my arms around, skipping and shit. Like that's frolicking. And that's what he was doing. He like had his arms out, was skipping onto and just making a scene. Like I'm here. I'm having a great time. This is it's inevitable. I already know who won. He was acting like that. That's the best way to describe it. He hit it as though he already know he won. And the Jamaican had a better time, and this was by no means one of those cakewalks.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, he won by fractions of fractions. It was
yeah.
so flipping close. And he just walked out there like so cocky and confident in all the shit talk he did leading up to it. And then afterwards, he's like, I told you, America, I got this. You know, like
I
relax. It's
think
crazy.
I think things like that though, that makes the sport like that. Like obviously everyone's gonna watch it anyways, but I feel like the influx in people who watch that because of the storyline he built, like that's I think that's a massive thing in sports in general, building a storyline. And whether you take on the role of being a villain or you're the one everyone's behind, I feel like that makes a sport interesting because a lot of the time what people say is, oh, powerlifting's boring to watch all this. But then when they have someone they can get behind, even if it's at Worlds, to see in a country they can support or someone they've followed online or someone who's got injured and come back for like Joe Borstein, for example, like having that storyline makes such a massive difference in like the interest in how you watch it. I feel like that's such a massive thing.
Easier to be okay. This will be two questions, but let me ask the first one first. Is it
Yeah.
easier to be the villain or the good guy? Do you think?
I think when you're objectively the strongest, I think it's easier to be the villain because everyone can't deny they love an underdog story. And I feel like you kind of have to take on that role when you're the strongest as a villain. Like I'm not saying he is, but low key, the way I look at Rondell, not that he's a villain, but it's
He's a
like
villain.
one of my friends made a joke the other day. They're like, "Oh, he's the Thanos of the 120s." Like when you're that strong, it's like you're almost looking down on everyone. They're trying to beat you. Like everyone has to rally together to kind of face you. And I feel like when you're objectively the strongest, it's easier to be the villain. And then as an underdog, like that's the story. People are behind you. They'll give you everything you need. And I feel like a perfect example of that is the 83s Russ versus Durance. Like
Mm.
He'd been so dominant for so long, he's so clear. Everyone saw him as the villain just because he was so strong. And then Durance come along as an underdog. Everyone's behind him, rallying the story, and you saw it in the way the crowd celebrated.
I think that's a good analogy when you said you're like Thanos and the Avengers are all ganging up on you. Because when you go into the world championships, if you're the guy, undisputedly by the numbers, you are in the lead. Everybody is looking at you. The entire rest of the roster, it really is the Avengers. Every country has sent their best and they're looking to beat you. That's the Avengers. And you were the guy.
Yeah,
Just like in at World Championships, Russ was the equivalent of Thanos, where everybody's like, one of us has got to beat him. One of us is going to step up. We're all going to take swings. Some of us are going to swing and miss. And when Jurn swung and hit, like, holy shit, he just beat Thanos. It is kind of like that.
yeah,
So it would be easier to lean into that role because it is kind of difficult. Like when we think about all the stars from different sports, if you're on top for a while, I mean, people revere you, but yeah, you're going to start leaning into more of the villain arc. When it comes to Rondell, that's why. Like obviously in real life, like he's a nice guy. I mean, I'm surprised. Like he's obviously I've known Rondell for years. Like he's a great guy. However,
yeah.
storyline, Bob Matthews is way smaller than him. It's David versus Goliath. Whenever you set up David versus Goliath, who's rooting for Goliath? Very difficult. Like you
Exactly.
can
Yeah,
sell that, but it's very difficult to make Goliath the good guy in that story. And then with your storyline, you're 19. You're the young phenom on the way up. Everybody's excited about the young phenom on the way up. It's very
yeah.
he's a grown ass man. It's difficult, man, to root
That's the
against. Like
problem.
it's one of
Yeah,
those deals where Rondell walks into this world championships. I mean, this is a long ways away from it, but let's say
yeah,
is you and Bob. I think you're right in terms of let's just lean into it is what it is. I'm the returning king, and I'm gonna dash the hopes of David and dash the hopes of the young rising star. Like it's the rule. It is easier. Now, having said that, and I think you're also right. It's totally natural for you to be you can lean in and be the good guy because you're young and you're everything we already said. Now, having said that, A, what's easier for you in terms of shoe to wear personally? If you're like, man, I kind of want to start shooting from the hip. I kind of want to get out of pocket every now and then. It feels natural for me to just like Nick Manners is the ultimate online troll, comes on the podcast dropping hot takes and like he's the ultimate dude like that. And it's natural for him. It's not a front. It's not something he's got to look for. What comes naturally for you? And then that's A. B. What do you think it's more reception from the public?
So I'd say more naturally for me, I'd say probably being a good guy. I don't know. I feel for me, it's like a weird one because it feels like I gotta have respect for the people who've been here for time. People like Tony, like they've laid the foundation of the sport, and then obviously when you're facing someone like I don't know, it's I find not that I can like in certain situations I can be a villain. I definitely play more into the like good guy side. In terms of reception, definitely when I'm like more of a villain, that's people like are much more behind you, or not behind, but like people who support you, your fan base, like they almost do the work for you. You see them in other people's
Mm.
comments talking, "Oh, he's gonna beat you," or "He's the best ever," and then you also have the other side of other people like, "Oh, like who can beat him?" And I don't know, you kind of create like kind of base. Um, but I'd say there are times like I feel like I'm getting better at knowing when I need to like play on either side and when I've got to back myself and make statements.
I know what you mean in terms of like, for instance, Tony Cliff, and you're like, dude, Tony Cliff is 40 years old. He's literally twice your age. People say, like, man, I'm twice your age, and they're like 7 years older. He's literally twice your age. He could literally be your father. You know what I mean? Like, he's literally that age. And I know what you mean, where you're like, man, this is going to be different. I can't really talk shit on Tony.
Yeah,
It feels weird, like just even to promote, it would feel weird. You're like, it's difficult to,
yeah,
and he did pave the way. He paved the way for a lot of lifters in Britain, and he's within the federation and everything he's done and winning world titles when Britain needed a male to win a world title type deal. So I know what you mean. We're at your age, you're like, it's kind of hard to fire shots when it'd be forced. It wouldn't feel real. It's like, God, man, I'm more like look up to this guy, and now I gotta because things are happening so quickly. I gotta fire shots. Feels kind of weird.
yeah.
Or if you get in this position and you get a lot of hype behind you, and he fires shots at you, how would that feel? It'd be like,
That's
God, that's weird.
it would be weird, but like not that I'm almost waiting for it, but I feel like once it's kind of like the okay green flag of we can like kind of go back and forth, then I feel like it'll be much easier to play into it and do all that. Because right now, I'd say I only do it. I don't know if you know Ngoka lifts, Josh, the big guy, he squats a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I do it with him because we're the same age, and he like I know it's friendly at the end of the day and all that. It's harder when I don't know him as close and there's such a big age gap. But if he was to do it first, then of course I'm ready to return and bounce
Right.
back and all that.
I mean, it would like just hype it up. But would you
100%.
be like, would it be weird if you look up to a guy and you've watched them and you're like, wow, they paved the way. And then it's almost a compliment because you're on the radar and you know what they're doing. Like when Bob Matthews came over to the IPF and Tony Cliff called him, and Tony Cliff was the world champ, and called him Sideshow Bob and saying he's the USAPL flunky in saying whatever, because he lost in the head to head to Ashton, crossed over,
Yeah,
whatever. Obviously, Tony respects Bob in terms of lifting. He's
yeah,
hyping. He's hyping. We know what he's doing. Tony's going to do his job. Tony's been around for years, and he's seen when powerlifting had like early 2000s had zero people watching, and now he sees what's going on now. So he's gonna play the role, create some hype, do his damn thing. Just like
yeah,
Bob is gonna return, be like, don't get clapped by a 105. They do the job, man. And
yeah,
in the end of the day, people get worried about what if I talk all this shit and I lose? Bob said everything, or sorry, Tony said everything he said, and Bob won. But it's not going to take away. I'm like, don't worry about that because Tony still Tony still won the world titles he won. He's still
exactly.
revered and legendary career. Like nothing. What happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. You're good. Your fans are still your fans. Everyone knows we're trying to hype something. But in terms of turning it on, it almost is like, holy shit, I'm on this guy's radar. Holy shit, I'm like if Rondell says something, like if you break the world record and then open world record, Rondell's like, that's good, kid. Ain't gonna be enough when I come back. You know you never
Exactly. It's
called me
like
yet.
that's crazy. Yeah.
But so it isn't. Do you? How do you think you would take it? Would you take it like personal, or would you be like, nah, I think I know what they're doing? What do you
No,
think?
I definitely I'd know what they're doing. I'd probably play into it as well. I definitely like I've I've always wanted to be able to kind of have that back and forth and be like, don't count me out just yet, all that stuff. And I don't know, I feel like it was like I kind of like the way Borenstein did it. Like he made his statement, like you said, he came for Russ's position, but not Russ personally. Like that
Yeah,
type of thing is just that's like I feel like that's a good way to do it.
yeah. It creates hype, and if you could, if it's all powerlifting talk, it's sports talk. It's not personal. It is what it
Yeah.
is. You got what I want. You got what I want, and and I want to take it from you. So it's it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And at some point, you'll be right up in the mix with all of this once you enter into the open. And yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what happens. And I don't know how it's all going to shake up, but you versus Rondell, if you do what you said you're about to do, and if Bobb goes, that might be the hottest division, my friend. That's the hot one. The 120s, the
Definitely like it.
120s are back, baby.
We're bringing height back to the 120. That's what we need.
What do you think's the hottest division right now?
It's got to be the 83s or the 93s. I think
It's so
Keiko's
good.
taking a year out, isn't he?
You know what, man? Keiko is crushing right now. When I see
Yeah.
his list right now, he is crushing. He's got to be back soon.
I think when he returns, it'll be the 93 spot. The most anticipated battle right now is probably the rematch between Russ and Durance, and hopefully throw Joe in there as well. Yeah, I'd say right now that. And then the only like I wouldn't call them the hottest class. Obviously, the 74's got Perkins. He's just so ahead. And 120 plus, you got Jesus. Like, those are individual performances. But as a class, 83s and 93s.
When I talk to like, and 66s are actually stacked too. When I talk to guys like Penna and Russ, they like in their mind's eye having somebody that they're chasing and some kind of an animosity towards them. They like creating, Russ says like I'm moody in the gym. Russ is all like late when you see him at events, he's laid back, all smiles, he's on the podcast, whatever. But in the gym, he's like, I'm moody. I'm like worked up into a fever. And Penna too. Penna like will focus in on someone. They don't have to say something big. Like, we just said if one of those dudes, the big dudes, take a shot at you, you know what
Yeah,
time it is.
yeah,
And Bobb, when Bobb was talking about Tony, he's like, I know what time it is. Like we're doing what we're doing. I'll fire back, but I know what it is. But Penna will try to make it bigger in his mind's eye. He's going to be professional at the meet and everything,
yeah,
but he tells himself that's personal. You fucking think that? Like he's working this in his head. Like he'll hit the gym like pissed, and he's like, man, fuck that guy. I'm gonna expose this guy. I'm gonna like he leans in because it stokes the flame. He's an extremely passionate guy. You see the way he lifts
yeah, of
when he's
course.
on podcast, everything's passion, and he needs that. He needs a guy. They have those memes where it shows some dude, Mad Dog, and some other dude, and he's like, there's a guy everybody has a guy in the gym that you just made up as your
Just
enemy,
maybe,
and
yeah,
you
yeah, mate,
fucking
yours.
hate, and you hate that
Yeah,
guy, and that guy may or may he probably feels the same way about you, but
yeah.
in reality, he's got a wife and kids, and he don't. It's
It's a
just
normal guy, yeah.
normal dude. You meet him any other situation, you're best friends. But there's that power, there's that like flame it gets stoked. Do you have that, or do you think you would have that? Do you think that's your type of personality, or are you like, no?
I think I have that type of personality. I'd like, I'd use it just to like motivation almost, just like that extra drive. It's like, okay, cool, like you've talked your shit, I've talked my shit, but you can't talk shit. It should only be me. Like I should be so clear, so ahead, and I don't know. I just focus in. Like I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it would just help me be more locked in and know what I have to do and what I have to hit, and like put more pressure on.
It, it definitely is a motivating factor. You know, Russ talked about back in the day when him and Sean Noriega were going back and forth, and talk about locked in. Like he wanted, he wanted to stomp that out. And people rallying like when Johnny Candido put Sean will beat Russ as his profile pick. And Johnny Candido's got a big YouTube, and like for a hot minute there was like probably the biggest. I don't know what it is now, if they, but when he did that, that rallied Russ, and he's like, "Oh, really?" And it became like personal mind's eye. Not like, I hope bad things happen to Sean or whatever, but more on the competitive side. It's like, no, no, no.
That
You
I
guys are
think
rallying
that
behind him like
definitely
that?
that plays into it. The people who rally behind like you and your competitors and that whole thing of people in the like comments arguing and like other powerlifters who you respect and like talk to having a oh who's gonna win, who's gonna win, like all of that. I feel like it just feeds into that. Like if you're the right type of person, just okay, cool now, like let me lock in more. Like you just hit that like next gear.
Yeah. It only serves the hunger more. And some people will peruse the comments and be like, oh, I see. I see what you're saying. I'm taking notes. Some people take notes on it. Listen, man, I gotta bounce. I this
Yeah,
this but let me say something. I feel like me and you could go like another hour. This is an easy conversation.
yeah,
We got to do this again. Let's obviously you're not going, no, you're just getting started. On the other side of junior worlds, let's talk again. Let's talk about the
okay,
junior worlds. Let's talk about the future. Let's touch base again, my friend.
of course.
Good luck with all your pursuits. I
Thank
swear
you
to
very
God, I
much.
mean this. It's only a matter of time. It's not a, it's just when it's going to happen. And we're all powerlifting is better having you in the mix because this is going to be exciting, especially if Bobb goes 120. I mean, I get it. If he goes 105 for Sheffield, great. But if in the
Yeah.
bigger picture he's 120 at Worlds again, and you're there, and Rondell's there, heads up, man. That's a monster clash. And ETN and all the 120s,
Be on that. It'll be a real show.
big boys are back. It's no longer these little men. It's but anyways, man. Good luck with everything. We'll keep in touch, and I'll
Of
drop you a
course.
line in the future. Thanks for
Okay.
coming
Of
on, my man. And
course.
everybody listening, as per usual, please do subscribe, give us high ratings, and until next time, six pack Lapadat, six up, and we are out.